Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Opie's suspicions about his wife's fidelity grow as she becomes secretive about her online activities and requests to meet a new female friend for lunch. Following her discreetly, he discovers her rendezvous with Leah's boyfriend and exposes their affair through social media, causing public outrage. Confronted with evidence, he informs her parents, files for divorce, and maintains the upper hand in the settlement. Despite his wife's desperate attempts to reconcile, he remains resolute. He finds support in Leah and hopes their story helps others facing betrayal and sudden life changes. Now let's get into the story. My wife didn't usually go out to lunch with friends. I would have supported it, but she was a little socially awkward, so most of her friends were online. She had one best friend that we both knew well named Leah. She'd see her as often as possible, but she lived 45 minutes away. We had an open phone and computer policy between us, but my wife was such a sweet little angel, I never felt the need to check either. She was on it a lot, but usually still interactive with me and made it clear that giving me her attention and time was a priority. That started to change when she stayed in the bathroom longer, sometimes even locking the door, and seemed irritated if I asked her anything while she was absorbed in one of her electronic devices. Well, I became officially suspicious when she asked me if she could go out to lunch with a new female friend. She even went so far as to show me the messages between them, but only a few about meeting up. Sure, her name was programmed as a girl's name, but how did I know who it really was? How did my wife even know who it really was? I asked her to call this girl so I could say hi, but she said she couldn't right then because she was at work. She assured me they talked on the phone lots of times when I was at work. That was a little more unnerving than comforting. When the day came for her to meet this girl for lunch, my wife became even more insistent that she was going, and I needed to trust her. After she left in her little old car, I got into mine and followed her using our family location app. But she turned it off after 13 minutes of driving, so she didn't want me to know where she was. That was disheartening. I drove up and down the street where she turned it off. It was full of restaurants and shopping. After looking for 8 minutes, I was about to give up because I felt like she could be spying on me at this point, and I'd have no idea. But then I saw her car in the Applebee's parking lot. So I parked at a distance and wore my prop hat, sunglasses, and scarf into the restaurant. Before the hostess even greeted me, I saw them. My wife and Leah's live-in boyfriend. So that's why she didn't just lie and say she was meeting Leah. I couldn't believe it. She was seeing another man behind my back, and it was her best friend's boyfriend. Why the hell did she feel the need to do this? My heart was pounding and sure, my face was red. When the hostess tried to seat me, I told her I wouldn't be staying after all. I snuck over to where I could get a good picture of them, then went back to my car. I waited, determined and eager to catch them in whatever they were doing. My wife got into Leah's boyfriend's car, and I followed them at a distance to Leah's house. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and my nauseating suspicions only grew. They went into the house, and I sat in the car, wondering what I should do. My wife didn't make very much money, but her parents would send her pretty nice sums of money each month for various reasons. I decided if I caught her cheating on me, I would tell her parents they had very high expectations for their daughter, which didn't involve her cheating or getting divorced. Then I decided to go inside. The front door was locked, but it wasn't hard to find a spare key unlocking. It was louder than I wanted it to be, and I heard a few movements as the door opened. I entered and closed it behind me, hoping they thought it was Lee returning home unexpectedly. The last noise I heard sounded like it came from the kitchen, so I slowly walked there, keeping my eyes peeled. When I got there, no one was there, but there was a door leading to the basement. I didn't open it, I just locked it. If they were in there, they'd be found eventually. I searched the rest of the house and didn't find them, so they were definitely stuck in the basement. I left the house, locking it and returning the key before driving home. Before I even got home, Lee called me. She said she just found my wife and her boyfriend in the basement together. I played dumb. She was in disbelief, and I could hear them all arguing and trying to explain things. I apologized to Leah, told her I was driving, and asked her to call me back when she figured out what was going on. She called me back 1 hour later. She was crying as she explained that she took her boyfriend's phone from him and checked messages. There were messages spanning back 5 months between my wife and him, and it was clear that their relationship was much more than friends. They had close as early as 4 months ago because that was the first time it was mentioned in texts. They spoke about when Lee or I would go to work and how lonely they were. They complained they needed more attention and could handle more than one partner. I was furious. I apologized to Lee again for her having to go through this with me. I asked her to send me screenshots of what she had because these cheaters needed to be called out. Once I got them, I sent them to my wife's parents. I also posted them on Facebook tagging my wife. Lee did the same, tagging her boyfriend. Social media exploded with hate comments towards them both. They were shunned. My wife called me 3 hours later because she still hadn't come home. I imagined because she had a feeling I knew what she was doing. She had a sad tone as she said sorry to me, asking what she could do to make this better. I told her there was nothing she could do. I already told her parents and planned on filing for divorce. She wailed and started crying when I told her that. Just then her mother called her on the other line. She hung up on me to answer it. When she called me back, she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. It felt good to hear her suffering similar emotional torment to what she caused me. She tried to me that she didn't have anyone now, and I asked her how that was my problem. Then she tried several different tactics to get me to take her back or show her a flicker of mercy, even going so far as to offer me a pass to have close with another woman. I declined and told her I'd be able to have intimate with anyone I wanted. Now, because I was single, she tried to contact me every day throughout the divorce, but I ghosted her. I had proof that she cheated, so I kept my house and didn't have to pay her a dime in alimony. To wrap up my story, Leah and I have both become good friends after going through this, and I wanted to share this story in hopes of helping other people to cope with sudden change and unfaithfulness. Today's second story. In this story, Opie gets suspicious when the wife starts behaving strangely, leading the man to discover suspicious text messages. Following her, he encounters a woman who suspects her husband of infidelity. Confronting his wife, he learns of her affair, and despite her remorse, he files for divorce. Both the man and the woman whose husband cheated find solace in each other's company. The affair becomes a scandal in their small town, resulting in the couple's divorce and the man finding support in the betrayed wife. Now let's get into the story. I was 22 years old when I decided to join a gym and build some muscle. It was there that I met my future ex-wife and trainer, who was 25 years old. She was amazingly fit. Whenever I worked out, she became my motivation. She joked with me, laughed, and asked me questions about my job and hobbies. I gained muscle under her watch and eventually asked her on a date. Throughout our dating relationship, she never shared anything about herself that I didn't instantly fall in love with. When my dad met her, he insisted that I pop the question. Looking back now, I know it was too soon. I think Dad and I were just excited at the thought of expanding our small family. We had a big wedding. My dad spared no expense. A few years later, we still didn't have a baby, but things seemed to be going fine. She was still a trainer at the gym, and I'd moved up in my dad's company. We spent lots of time together because we got home from work at the same time each day. We were open about our cell phones, but I never asked to check hers. I never felt like I needed to until 5 years later. My dad passed away, so I was basically running his business. I started getting home a little later, around 5 p.m., and I'd find her at home being a wonderful housewife and making dinner or something. Well, after a few months of this, she arrived home after me one night. This was odd because she never worked late or did anything without sending me a text. When I asked her where she'd been, she was surprised I didn't get her text. She showed me how she typed out a text to me, but didn't push send. The text said that she was going to give a coworker a ride home because his car wouldn't start. This was just a red flag to me, and I knew something was up. She started taking her phone into the bathroom with her, and this was the second red flag. We never made a rule for this, but she'd never done it because she wanted to be in and out quickly. I waited a minute before I walked in on her, trying to see what was on her phone. She was definitely texting someone before she jumped out of her skin and looked like she was caught red-handed. After a verbal fight ensued, I was finally able to check her phone. It was a string of texts to a number that wasn't saved. It appeared that some of the texts were missing because the conversation didn't make sense. Only innocent enough sounding texts were left behind without context. The whole time I checked her phone, she was bright red. I asked for more information, but she swore it was the same friend who needed a ride home and that nothing was going on. I pretended to let it go, but secretly decided to follow her to work. The next day, I saw a male coworker greet her with a smile and hug. I returned later as they were getting off work and saw him give her another hug. My blood was boiling. Who was this guy, and why was it so normal for him to touch my wife? They chatted about God knows what until I texted her to say I'd be home late. She looked at the text with him standing beside her and then leaned close to tell him something. They both walked to his car, got in, and left. I followed them to his house and sat in my car for a few minutes. Before I get out of the car, a woman knocks on my window. She demands to know who I am and why I'm outside of her house. Although I was very confused, I told her what was going on. As she listened, a look of concern spread across her face. She said that she'd been suspecting her husband of cheating with a coworker and thought he was bringing her here while she worked late tonight. She came home early without informing him, and that's when she saw my car. She invited me to join her while she knocked on the door. We held our breath until her husband answered the door. He turned white, and I could see beads of sweat appear on his forehead. He starts playing dumb and asking what's going on, right before his wife explodes on him. Her screams urge my wife to rush to the door, adjusting her clothes as she makes eye contact with me. She immediately starts fighting back tears as she explains that she just wanted to come over and hang out with him, something that makes no sense and has no credibility at all. While the wife screams at her husband, I notice my wife's wedding ring is missing from her finger. I demand that she gets in my car, and she does. On the way to pick up her car, she would not admit that they had intimate. I was trembling as I drove. My wife never showed me any signs of wanting something different from what we had. I asked her why she slept with him, but she denied it again. She said they were only supposed to hang out and that she didn't know he was married either. When I asked her why her wedding ring was off, she told me it was because it pinched whenever she lifted weights. I didn't believe her, but I didn't make her leave the house either. A part of me wanted this to be a bad dream. She didn't go back to work, and for about 2 months, she lived each day in suspense and humility. While she did her best to please me, I basically ignored her and all the questions my brain wanted answers to. Like, was she still secretly talking to this man? Why won't she admit she had intimate when I know she did? Does she even want to be married? How could I ever trust her again? That's when I got an email from that man's wife. My email isn't hard to find if you know my name. She told me that her husband finally told her what happened, that my wife had been to their house at least 2 times before that, and that each time she had intimate with her husband. She added that she was sorry to be the bearer of bad news, and that she planned on informing their boss of the affair. It was the worst news of my life. Instead of talking to me about whatever was going through her head and trying to keep our marriage sacred, she went behind my back and slept with him. The level of betrayal was unspeakable. I confronted her, calling her a liar and showing her the email I received. She started crying and begging me to forgive her. She said that they had chemistry at work and the thought of sleeping with him just crossed her mind. She said it was a mistake to go through with it and that she's hated herself ever since it happened. I told her I didn't believe a damn word she said because apparently she had gone back to his house more than once to sleep with him. It takes an awful lot of deceit and intent to keep going back like that. She cheated on me more than once with some guy she knew for about a month. I told her how upset I was that she never tried to talk to me about any of it. while pretending she had no secrets from me. Because of her infidelity and lies, I filed for divorce. My dad raised me to be emotionally strong and to make decisions that need to be made. I'm almost glad he died before she did this, so that according to him, we lived happily ever after. But no. Instead of that, her affair and bad reputation became the hot gossip of our small town. The dude was kicked out by his wife around the same time I kicked out my ex. They were both fired, divorced at a young age, and labeled as cheaters. I heard he won't date her because he doesn't trust her. Go figure. A few weeks later, I took the betrayed wife out for dinner, and we had a good time.